Hello and welcome to Sip and Knit. My name is Sarah of SarahKarineKnits. As I'm sitting down to talk to you today, I am noticing that my camera is crooked, so I will fix that in the next shot. I do apologize. Welcome. This is going to be more of a regular episode, so if you watched the last episode, I did a recap of 6 months of my knits, which included quite a few garments, a shawl, a few socks, and I talked at length about those projects. So if you're interested in that at all, that is the last video that I posted. It includes this top. I will still talk about it today so that you don't have to go back to that quite long video. We're just going to talk about my pile of whips that I have going on here. There are 7 whips, and 1 FO. So it's the exact opposite of the video from last week. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining me. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. Welcome back. And if you're new here, I hope that you enjoy your time. And without further ado, I'm going to get into it because I have a feeling it's going to be a long one and I had to close the window, so it's also going to be a hot one. So thank you so much and let's get into it. I didn't talk about what I was sipping on. This is the Sip and Knit podcast after all, and I did just complain about how it's going to be way too warm in here. The sun seems to have gone behind a cloud, so the light might change a little bit throughout. I feel like every podcaster talks about lighting, and no one actually really cares all that much, but if you do, that's what's happening. We're working with natural light here. I'm just going to be drinking out of my massive water bottle, just ice water, because it's hot. And it's the middle of a Wednesday, so it didn't really feel suitable to include a cocktail. I do have a dentist appointment after this. So we're just gonna be sipping on some water, trying to hydrate from the actual summer day that we're having here in BC. And without further ado, we're gonna get into some, I guess, what I'm wearing. I won't start with finished objects yet. You can totally hear the ice clinking around. That's gonna be annoying, isn't it? Okay, as I said at the beginning, this is a finished object that I finished earlier this year. I talk about it in my most recent upload, and so if you're interested in like details, I would suggest going to that video. That being said, I will talk about this for you if you're interested. So this is the Jessie May Ripple Crop Top. It's the fingering weight version. The yarn that I used is Knit Picks Stroll Tonal, that's what it is. Knit Picks Stroll Tonal in the Eucalyptus colorway. I used just under 2 skeins of yarn for the size 4 or the size large. I think it's meant to be like a 58-inch bust. And I did the sleeves as written. I added length. What I ended up doing was following her suggestions for a longer cropped body, which ends up being a normal crop on me because height. So it hits about my belly button, and I'm just wearing that over this new to me. It's a vintage like silk slip dress. I think it was probably technically like a sleeping dress back in the day, but it's cute and I'm gonna wear it as a regular dress. So that's what I'm wearing today. Anything else, details about this? No, I think that's pretty much it. I sized up 1 needle size to what Jessie May suggests in the pattern because she's a very loose knitter and I am not. So I sized up there and it worked out pretty well. I would say that with her ripple pattern specifically, the gauge is very forgiving because it is, squished up like a funny little tube while you're knitting it. It's a little bit difficult to determine. I will say in general, if you're not going for fitted, you can kind of play around with like gauge and needle size and those things, and you should be okay to get a garment that will suit most of the time. Your mileage may vary. So yes, we're gonna talk about a finished object. If I can get my sock blocker to squeeze out. I'm gonna talk about socks first because I have quite a few socks. I'm a sock knitter, or at least I was a sock knitter pretty primarily, and then I moved on to garments. Socks are one of the first things I taught myself how to knit. They just seemed very practical. I have a whole video on that, like way back in the day when I used to edit my videos far different than I do now. So if you're interested at all in my like journey as a sock knitter, that one's pretty fun to watch, like back in the day. Oh, and also I meant to mention this earlier. For those of you who are here from my most recent video, thank you so much. The views on that video are like 10 times what I typically get. The comments on that video are more than kind. I have quite a few new subscribers as a result, and I will be actually doing a giveaway at the end of this video for that, so stay tuned. I'll talk more details at the end if you're not interested. We won't do that now, but I just wanted to say thank you. It's been so lovely getting to know some folks in the comments, sharing, you know, what they've been knitting on and how they relate to what I talk about in my videos. If you are new and you only watched the last video, at the end of my videos, what I typically do is I have a bit of a knit and chat segment where I talk about something that I've been thinking about in regards to the craft. That could range from my personal opinions on like yarn collections, as well as like more, I guess, politically minded conversations that are happening in the knitting community. So if you're interested in that at all, it's sort of like a moment of reflection, if you will. I will be including that in today's video and most videos going forward. Last video was just so jam-packed with so many finished objects that I didn't feel like I could fit it in. But without further ado, finished objects. There's only one this time. So these are my socks. I did not use a pattern. I can tell you what I did if you would like to recreate, but essentially what I did was I cast on 64 stitches on what I thought was a US 1, but it turns out what Addie calls a US 1 is actually a 2.5 millimeter and not 2.25, which is a big difference when you're knitting socks. So these ended up a much looser gauge than I'm used to. So I cast on 64 stitches, which ended up being still too loose. And so I did 2x2 ribbing, 6x2 ribbing, and then I went into stockinette. When I went into stockinette, I decreased 4 stitches. So the rest of the sock is a 60 stitch sock. I hope that makes sense. This is Knit Picks Felici self-striping, or Felici, and then the stroll tonal, but it's not even really a tonal, it's just their regular stroll in like the 50-gram balls for both the heel and the toe in just a white. This is a stroll, no, this is Felici self-striping in the Game Over colorway, which I think is meant to be like, I don't know, this is reminiscent of Pac-Man to me. I have no idea if that's their intention, but it gives me Pac-Man vibes, if you will. So I have 2 socks here. I do apologize for the absolute mess that they're currently in. My partner, as soon as I'm done socks, she wears the socks. So that's what's going on here. So these are my finished object for this time around. And you'll see why I don't have more finished objects once I show you how many whips I have going on. The last finished object that I finished, I think you'll see it on Ravelry, was around mid-May. I have one whip that I'm nearly finished, and my goal is for that to be my January garment. It's a gift for my mom. I'll show you that first. But yeah, it's been a busy month of me being really excited to cast on all the things. And so that's why there's not as many finished objects. So I'll get into whips now, and I'll stop waving this like it's a wand. I'll get into whips now. We'll continue on with socks. The camera angle might have changed just a touch. I felt like you could see the window there, and that's a little bit distracting. Okay, so works in progress. We'll continue on with socks. So these are the Broken Rope socks by Summer Lee Knits, or Summer Lee Design Co. She's a sock designer primarily. I think she has like 1 or 2 sweater patterns from early in her designing days, but she does these sock pattern bundles where, you know, you pay for the pattern and there's like 3 to 5 different sock patterns, or at least like a variation on a couple of the sock patterns for like a longer leg or different striping ratios or things like that, which I find really inspiring. I am adventurous with my sock knitting and adventurous with the colors that I use, and so I find that her like inspiration is sometimes really helpful for me. So I have finished one sock. I'll tuck in all my ends here and I'll put it on the blocker so we can take a closer look. So these are the Broken Rope socks by Summer Lee Design Co. These ones are proper length. The other ones I knit a little bit too short accidentally. So that's what these look like here. They're a broken rib with a heel flap and gusset, and the pattern actually tells you all the numbers you need to know to do this like gym sock stripe that I quite like. And this blue color is in the color Rhapsody, like Bohemian Rhapsody, the song. And the white is just the white, the same white as the heels and toes from the other sock. So that's this. I quite enjoy the fit of ribbing on socks, which is why I added ribbing to the cuff of those ones. And I like the fit of a heel flap and gusset. They're not my favorite to knit, however. And so I find myself not really picking this up. I've had this single sock finished for quite some time. And I'm only about halfway through the leg of the second sock. So this is taking me a little while to complete, merely because every other round you're essentially doing ribbing. And so it's not as pick up and go as like a stockinette sock would be. If you're wondering what this is, I ordered yarn from Espastrico in Montreal, Quebec. I think they're in Montreal. And I ordered like a sweater quantity. And so they tucked in a little Progress Keeper stitch marker there that I was not expecting. So I don't know anything about it. I do apologize. I imagine if they have them to throw in packages, they probably have them on their website. So if you're interested in that cute little flower situation there, you can go check out their website. But yes, these are the Broken Rope socks by Summer Lee Design Co. from her, I'm not going to remember the sock set design, like the actual name. I'll put it down below for you. But essentially what you need to know is there are a few other patterns with that are beautiful. There's one that's like a scattered pearls, like pearl, P-E-A-R-L, like ocean pearls, but then also like P-U-R-L. So very punny, very cute. That I also want to make. I have a tweed from Red Door that I think I might use for those. I haven't decided yet. Okay, so these next socks were what do I call these? D&D stress knitting. So I play Dungeons and Dragons. I talked about this in my last episode and episodes previous as well. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I play and I also game master or dungeon master for some knitting friends. And when I'm a player, I have a hard time not getting stressed out and like overthinking my next turn when there's like combat and stuff. So my way of combating that in combat is by knitting. I'm sure a lot of us relate to that, whether or not it's D&D, but like having like a project to like occupy your mind or your hands so that you're not overthinking things, or you can focus better in meetings even for me sometimes. So that's what these socks sort of started out as. So this is a 9-round repeat for the stripes, contrast toe, heel flap and gusset. The second sock does not have the same heel flap. I thought I did a slip stitch, but I actually did a broken rib heel flap, and the heel flap is also way too short. So that's what I get for not following a pattern for heel flap and gusset. I don't need to follow a pattern for a short row heel, but I definitely need to follow a pattern for a heel flap and gusset. It's just too short. It fits my partner fine because her heel is not as like deep as mine, but they wouldn't really work for me. So lesson learned. I'm making the second pair the same length, but it just looks funny too. Like you can tell that it's too short of a heel flap. So that's what it is. If you're wondering why the leg is so long, I don't know. Ask my partner. She's convinced that she needs really long leg socks because of her work boots. And I get that, right? You want to make sure that it's all the way up and that it doesn't slip down your calf. So as a labor of love, these are nearly like 100 rounds to the heel. So definitely a labor of love, but worth doing. And let's be honest, it's not like I didn't want to knit the socks. So a few extra inches on the leg is not gonna hurt me. These next ones, you'll notice that the stripes are inverse. So these ones are gonna have a yellow toe. We like to keep it fun around here. So I'm gonna put this on the blocker as if that's like novel. I don't know. We just don't really care if the socks are matching, so why not add funky mismatched colors, you know? Okay, so these ones, you'll see, I want to put them on the blocker to see if it's noticeable. It might be that the heel is different. Same length, same awful length, but it's a slip stitch instead of a broken rib because I was convinced I had done a slip stitch, and then I looked at the first sock while I was doing the second sock heel, and I was like, that's not a slip stitch, that's fully broken rib. So I don't know what I was thinking there. And then I have some stitch markers to keep myself on track of like the length. I'm, oh, what would you say? Halfway to the toe. And, oh no, my yarn. There's not much left, as you can see. It's come out of its ball and it's just a few yards. So thankfully I do have another 50-gram ball of this gray. I tend to buy 100 grams of sock yarn specifically for my partner socks because of this long leg that she loves. So that's these ones here. Those are still my D&D / like work meeting socks. So that's all my socks. Now we're moving on to garments. The garments that I am knitting are mostly for me, but a couple of them are gifts, which I think is why I have so many whips, because I was like, oh, I'm really in the mood to knit for other people, but then I still wanted to knit for myself. And so Bob's your uncle, we've got 5 garment whips. Oh, you know it's hot when all my ice has melted. Okay. For garments, I think I want to talk about the one that I was working on this morning because I just moved it on to longer needles and I'm like satisfied with the point that we're at. So we're going to talk about my newest ranunculus. I already have a ranunculus. I believe my 4th episode, it'll be in the thumbnail, it's yellow. I believe in my 4th episode I wore it and I talked about it there. On Ravelry, I don't think I was, at the time I was fairly new still, and I don't think I was putting much information on Ravelry. But I do have a ranunculus that I knit in mohair and fingering. This is just mohair. So, okay, hold on. Try not to lose the floof. Okay. Nice. All right, so this is my ranunculus. It's going to be truly impossible for you to see what's happening here because you kind of need to be able to see it like on something to be able to, like, seeing through it is what makes it so you can see the patterning in there. But, okay, catching my stitches. That being said, I have put the markers in for the raglan increases, which you can see down here. So I'm past the yoke and I'm just doing the raglan increases. I'm making the size 4. So previously the pattern was a 1 PDF pattern for one size, and then there was an additional PDF or potentially multiple for each size. I don't recall. But there was another PDF for like a full bust adjustment and adding more raglan increases. What has happened now, oh no, oops. What has happened now is Midori has done a full revamp of the pattern sizing. So what is happening now is when you open the pattern, you see sizes 1 through 9 or 1 through 10, and you would choose the number based on your bust circumference, your finished circumference that you want, similar to most patterns I think folks would be familiar with. So she has upgraded the sizing. I know some folks were concerned that this pattern was not size inclusive as a result of just having like a secondary raglan increase bust adjustment PDF, and I fell into that camp. I was like, I don't really know where this lands. This is kind of funky. So now that it is fully size inclusive, bonus, I already had the pattern. We love to see it. This pattern has been knit thousands of times. So if you go on Ravelry, you'll see what I mean, but essentially, if you're not familiar, you can knit this pattern in, I would say, nearly any weight of yarn. I personally would not choose to knit it in something like a bulky, but that's not to say that you could not. I'm sure there are folks that have. You can knit it a single strand of lace weight all the way up to worsted. Aran, again, bulky if that's your preference. I'd probably go up a needle size or two and like go down a chest circumference. I'm knitting this the size 4, which will end at about around 52 inches. I did not check gauge because frankly, I don't care. It's just going to be like a loose flowy mohair garment that I can throw on over, kind of like what I'm doing now, over a dress like this, or a bodysuit and jeans, crop top and jeans. Like that's sort of the vibe that I'm going for. I started knitting this hoping to wear it out on a weekend out in Victoria, and just like fully didn't finish it in time because I didn't realize knitting single strand mohair is hard on my hands. I've switched over to wooden needles now, and I'm hoping that that's going to help. But if you've never knit with just mohair, similar to the next garment I'm going to show, anything basically that's not predominantly wool or like a stretchy fiber can be hard on your hands depending on how you knit. And I find the inelasticness of the silk core can really make like the centers of my hands hurt. And then on top of that, I was trying to keep the stitches on the metal needles, so I was gripping it much harder than I typically do. So now that I've switched it over to wood this morning, knitting on it, I felt much more comfortable. So I knew better. Like I knew that I should have done that. But now I've switched it over and I should be able to finish it fairly soon, because it's just going to be a cropped body, and I will add some sleeves there, but you'll see that in the next video, I'm sure. So this next one is, oh, I'm going to forget what it's called. Summer Sky, I think. Summer Sky Tee. It will be linked below. I try to put everything in order that I spoke about it. So this is knit in Pearl. Oh, I didn't say. This is knit in Aloft by Knit Picks in the black color. They're 25-gram balls. I have 4. I probably will only use 2, maybe dip into the 3rd. It's very forgiving for yardage. It's like a 70-30, 75-25 mohair and silk core. This yarn, for my Summer Sky Tee, and by mine I mean for my mother, I'm knitting her a gift. So this is, oh no, I caught it. This is Pearl Soho Burnish, and this is 100% rayon from bamboo. So bamboo's naturally occurring, but rayon is a man-made fiber, so I don't really know how that works out, but my understanding is it is more biodegradable and a little more eco-friendly than like an acrylic would be. That being said, knit with what works for you. If you like acrylic, keep using it. I'm not the yarn police. So this is 339 yards to 100 grams. It says you can knit it between a 23 and 28 stitch gauge. This is 24, and I'm knitting on a size US 4 and a US, actually, I don't think this even exists in a US size. It's like a 2.5. Yeah, 2.5 or 3 millimeter for the ribbing. I did go down to a 2.75, a US 2 for the sleeve ribbing, because I only had the short metal tips and the 16-inch circulars to knit on this. It was just the most comfortable. So it is slightly down in size, but I don't find much of a difference with that for the ribbing versus like the bottom. Maybe it's a little looser down here. So the construction of this tee is quite fun. I liked knitting this quite a bit. I think I'm happy it's in my library. I think I will probably knit it for myself. I would like to pick up, the designer has knitted in like a merino linen, potentially silk, in there as well. And it's really stunning. And I think that that's what I want to do. I really like the Sonder Yarn Co. has released a merino linen single ply. I don't remember the name of the base, but I think I would knit it in that. And it starts, you start on the back, you cast on all your stitches and you knit down, and then you pick up and you knit the fronts, and then you knit in the round. And then there's no sleeves other than ribbing. All of the shaping is done in short rows, and you see how it still falls like it's a t-shirt, but there's no actual knitting of a sleeve, which I like. So the only thing I have left to do is to knit the neckline. The neckline has some really beautiful short rows in the bottom of the V-neck, so it almost like tapers it off here and adds a little bit more length than like the ribbing around the side, so it gives you that coverage. It's a really thoughtful pattern. I would recommend it to an adventurous beginner, to like a mid range. Like I've knit a few garments, or I'm comfortable reading patterns, only because it is knit, or it is written by like a non-Western, like I think she's from Sweden. I really hope I'm not wrong about that. And I just find that though patterns from folks from that part of the world tend to be a little less hand-holdy and a little less specific. I found myself second guessing the pattern, which was really just me second guessing myself, because the pattern is written just fine. I wasn't sure about like the increase rate and like the length that I was going to end up at. Your row gauge sort of matters with this pattern, so if that's something that you don't normally check, keep that in mind, but I highly recommend. Oh, I don't think I mentioned the colorway. Blue Agave, that's Blue Agave. I'm on the 3rd skein, and I think I will dip into the 4th. I'm knitting the extra large size, which I believe is the 5th size in the pattern, which is what the pattern designer wears and what is modeled on, which was really helpful for me. So this is what I have left of the 3rd skein, and I have the neckband to do. I'm just gonna start from the 4th ball for the neckband because I don't want to have to weave in ends on the neckband. So I think I'll probably end up with like 800. I think I'll probably end up with 80 grams left, which is not really enough to make like a t-shirt or anything, or a tank, maybe a camisole, maybe like a cropped cami or like an As Friends tank or something like that. I can probably squeak out, because you know, no one wants 80 grams of a non-wool, like I can't throw it into a sock, for example, right? Like fingering weight of like sock yarn is much easier when you have leftovers than something like this. That said, I could always get a second color and stripe. So many possibilities. Okay, so that is my t-shirt for my mom. Same thing, this has been taking me a while to knit because of the hand pain that the yarn was causing me. I think I've just learned that I need to make sure that I have something that's wool on the needles when I also have something that's not, because having just the ranunculus and this, not cool for my hands, not cool at all. So that brings me to, got needles coming out my ears here. Okay, so this is a pattern that just recently released. If you know me and you've watched my previous episodes, you know that I'm not someone to think, okay, this just released, I have to buy the pattern, I have to buy yarn, I need to cast on. But something about this pattern in particular really spoke to me. It is the Lace Rib Raglan by James and Watts, and it looks a little bit something like this. So I'll try to hold up as best that I can. There's not much going on really. I'm still on the raglan. Is that the sleeve? Okay, yes, so it looks a little something like this. There's not much happening, but essentially you can see like the increases along the raglan line there. Very satisfying. Dropping my yarn. And it's just been really nice to knit. It is a 2-round repeat, so if you're worried at all, ooh, lace in the whole thing, too complicated, it's really not that bad. You can tell if you've made a mistake because of the way that the yarn overs are placed, and it's fairly easy to fix if you do make a mistake. So I would recommend that to anyone. If you've seen the pattern and you're like, ooh, that's really something, I would suggest it. So this is going to be knit in Serdar, which is West Yorkshire, different than West Yorkshire Spinners, I believe, in their Snuggly base. They have a 4-ply and a DK. So this is cashmere, merino, and silk. What is it? 75% wool, 20% silk, 5% cashmere. Very bougie. It's $13.50 Canadian for 50 grams, which is not terrible. $27 for 100 grams is not the least I've ever spent on yarn, but also not the most. And this is in the colorway Prince Charming, which is shade 304. I believe they might have changed names around because in looking on Ravelry at the number 304, it's not called Prince Charming. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but that's what that is. I'm gonna knit it, again, shocker, it's gonna be a short sleeve and slightly cropped so that I can wear it with high-waisted pants and dresses, because that's all I own. You knit what you like, you know what I mean? And this is my last object to share. So this is a test knit. Now, I am typically a sock test knitter. Oh gosh. I'm typically a sock test knitter, and not really a garment test knitter. And this is because I have a fear of like failure, in the sense of like, I don't want to sign up for a test knit, agree to the time frame, and then not be able to complete it. That's happened to me once as a brand new knitter. I was way too overzealous, and I still feel bad about it to this day. So I really am trying not to do that to people. And so that being said, I signed up for this test knit because, so this test knit is for Jen of JP Knits Things. Her designs are like very meticulous, very well thought out, very well fitting. She offers multiple short row options for bust adjustments from an A, I think, to like E or F, as well as I think 10 sizes. So not only do you have a garment that's going to fit she uses an upper chest circumference, and then you use that bust adjustment to adjust for your chest, should you choose to add that. I'm not, because I don't have much of a chest, and so I didn't think it relevant for me to add. However, that's huge for folks who do need that shaping, and she's very like explicit in her instructions, but not in a way that it gums up the pattern so that you feel like you're slogging through a novel. Like, she's just very thorough. I would highly recommend her as a designer. This is my first time ever knitting one of her patterns, but following her on Instagram and listening to like her opinions on knitting and fit and designing has been really inspiring. So I'm honored to have been chosen to do this test knit. I'm knitting the size 4. There's like a lace panel that'll go here, and then the little panel in the back, and then more lace here on the top. And then you start by knitting the front panels. This garment is seamed. It's a cardigan, so I'll seam it up the sides. I've never seamed anything before, so we'll see how that goes. But this is, as you can potentially see, it will be cropped, more length than cropped, but still, like, this is my belly button, and I'm only adding a little bit more. It might grow a bit with blocking, but that's still not, you know, hip length. So as you can see, there's some panels of like eyelet lace at the top, and ooh, it's rolled. I haven't blocked it yet. Oh gosh. And then there's some eyelet lace at the bottom there, and then there will be a very small button band, and I have some little like coconut wood buttons that I think I'm just gonna seam the button band closed and add the buttons as like decoration, because the shape of this garment is not something that I intend to wear open. I don't know if I said this, sorry. This is the Gone to Seed top by Jen Parancini. So yeah, so top lace panel goes over the shoulder, and then we knit down and we add some really beautiful shaping for the V-neck, and then we knit down. So this is actually what I plan on working on this afternoon. I hope to finish this front panel. I think I'm gonna block them just so that I can like see them in all their glory. We'll see if I do that or not. And then there's like a little bit on the back that I have to add so that I can knit the back down. And then the scary part of seaming, but Jen has a Slack group for her test knits that she's super active in and super helpful. And also there's folks that have been test knitting for her for a while, so those folks will also jump in and help. And it's been a very supportive test knit environment. So if you're not following Jen already, I would highly recommend her as a person, and then even more so as a designer and someone to work for in a test knitting capacity. Yeah, just a delight. Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna clean myself up here a little bit. I have 2 projects in one bag because I don't have enough project bags for the number of whips that I have. So that's been a time. Okay, last I have here is the second gift knit that I was sort of talking about. And ironically, I mentioned acrylic yarn earlier and how I'm not the yarn police because I use acrylic yarn. This is a knit for my sister? No, not sister-in-law. My, yeah, I guess technically sister-in-law, step-sister-in-law is the word I'm looking for here. This is the Flax by Tin Can Knits, omitting the garter shoulders because I was lazy. And I've color blocked it with 2 different colors of Heartland from Lion Brand. So I'm on the sleeve here, or magic looping. He's a little tiny baby, but I'm knitting the 6 to 12 months, whatever the second size is, because he was born a couple months ago. So by the time it's like Christmas, winter time, he'll fit in this is hopefully my plan. I intend to make a second one for my nephew who is now, I think he's pushing 4. So we'll knit him a bigger size. But that's all that is. I don't know. There's not much to share. It's a baby knit. I cast it on because I was in between some things and didn't want to start my test knit yet. And it just sounded like a good thing to knit on the weekend, like watching Lord of the Rings. And it was a delight. I haven't picked it up since. I did all of that in one day. Because again, it's a baby knit on worsted weight and I think US 9 needles. So it flew off the needles. I'll get to it eventually. I'll send it for Christmas, hopefully with a second one. And that'll be that. Oh goodness. That's a lot of knitting to talk about. Okay, let's get into the giveaway, shall we? One thing before the giveaway, I didn't talk about the yarn that I'm knitting my Gone to Seed in, so if you're sitting there going, she didn't talk about the yarn, I'm sorry. So this is Hedgehog is the colorway, and the base is, let me not get this wrong, the base is Meadow. They call it Rustic Luxury. It's from The Fiber Co. And it is a textured blend of baby llama, silk, linen, and merino wool. So it's kind of a combo animal fiber and plant fiber that has been a delight to knit with. What I will say is there are little strands of what I believe is the linen. I'll pull one out so you can see potentially. It's so pale. I don't know if you can see that. But I find myself as I'm knitting pulling those out because otherwise they're like sticking out. It's probably part of the charm of the yarn. So I don't know. But if you watch or follow Aro of Aro Knits and Pearls on Instagram, she talks about how she pulls out some of her tweed neps on the front side of her garments. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm doing with these little wispies. But yeah, it's from the Fiber Co. It's called Meadow. I purchased 3 skeins for the size 4, although she did note that like it will just barely dip into that 3rd skein, but I didn't want to be short on a test knit, particularly because I'm not modifying length in any way. So I wanted to make sure that I had enough. I have some sitting here next to this like pink that if I don't use it all, I can use it in color work. Like looking at it next to it, I was like, that's really pretty. Or I can always, if not with that, use it in color work elsewhere. Make a camisole to go under the cardigan. There's so many options, so I'm not too worried about having extra of this yarn. It has been really nice to knit with. I haven't used anything from the Fiber Co., but their yarns and their yarn bases in particular are really intriguing to me, so I was delighted that this is what her sample was knit out of so that I could have an excuse to try that brand specifically. So that's what that is knit out of. My apologies, I got a little excited to talk about the giveaway. So last video, my last episode, surpassed my like greatest expectations for this channel. I started this basically because all my knitting friends we talk about knitting and I love it. And so I was like, well, if I love talking about knitting with my knitting friends, why not make more knitting friends? And so that's why I started this channel. I have very low expectations of viewership and subscriber count. It's not what is important to me. However, I am doing a giveaway based on subscriber count, so I guess it's important to me in some way, but it's more so a thank you. It's more so a, hey, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate that you're here. I hope you stick around. I hope you interact. I hope you comment. I hope you follow me on Instagram. I hope that we can be knitting friends virtually or in real life if you live on the island in BC, who knows? Ken, hi. So yeah, I don't know if this matters to any of you. If it doesn't, that's okay. But if it does, what I'm giving away is a ball of Mondim sock yarn. This is yarn that I use and love. I had purchased something else for the giveaway, very similar, dark blue, but it wasn't sock yarn and it wasn't a yarn that I had used before, and so it didn't feel right to have that as the giveaway. I want to make sure that I'm gifting something that I have used and I know that I enjoy. So this is Mondim sock yarn, 100 grams, and it's in the colorway 301. They don't name their colors, but it's just this really pretty navy blue. And the reason I chose the navy blue is because the bag that I got for the giveaway, so there's also a bag. The bag that I got for the giveaway is this really pretty Moon Phases bag. This is called Sugar and Candy. I purchased this from my not so local yarn store. I have one in Duncan, but I went to the one in Victoria called Beehive. It's been there for ages. So I got this from them, and it is handmade with materials sourced from Canadian suppliers. And then my understanding, based on what the person at Beehive told me, is that the person making the bags is also located in Canada. So it's a little Canadian delight here. There is a price tag on it that I'm going to peel off so no one can see. So yes, it's called the Dusk Till Dawn Small Drawstring Bag. So drawstring like that, the perfect size for socks. And so I have the sock and the sock yarn, and it has this really cute little like pouch thing here that you can put like notions and stitch markers and things in, and then it drawstrings up like this, and you've got yourself a little bag here. So this is going to be available to, so here's the thing about giveaways, is I can't police or enforce any of the requests that I'm about to make. However, I would love it if this went to someone who is a subscriber of mine. If this is your first video that you're seeing, that counts, right? I just want you to be someone who's interested in what I'm talking about, who's interested in interacting, or watching silently. That's also fine. I'm a silent watcher of podcasts. I almost never comment, so I get it. But you know, if you've had a moment of rest and knitting and hanging out with me, or you know, you put this on to clean your house and I'm background noise, that all counts, right? What I'm trying to avoid is, you know, the folks who are like, ooh, giveaway, and then, you know, win it and then I never see them again. It's fine if that's what happens, but it would make me a little bit sad. So all I ask is that if you choose to subscribe, that's great. Again, I cannot enforce or police that, but I will require a comment on this video. That's the best way for me to go about it. There are always trolls and there are always like scam accounts. So the way that I will announce the winner will be in the next video within somewhere between two and 4 weeks. I'm not super consistent with podcasting, and I don't intend to like promise a schedule, but the giveaway will be open until the next, I didn't think about that. Hold on. The giveaway will be open until the day that I film my next video. I will post, YouTube has this like community tab, so I will post there, and I will always also change the caption of that video, like the description bar, to say giveaway closed. So if you're watching this too long in advance, you know, you'll see that it's been closed. And I will announce the winner of the video in the next one. I will say their name And I will also comment on their comment in the video so that they know, and we will communicate that way. I will not ever create a new Instagram to contact you. I will never ask for payment information. I am covering the shipping costs of this giveaway. So please, 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 if anyone contacts you, no, absolutely not. Me and only me, okay? I will only ask for your address. That's it. So if you want to enter to win a ball of Mondim sock yarn and this project bag, then please go ahead and comment down below. I would love it if your comment included, yes, I want the giveaway, or yes, please, or something like that, just so that I know that if I draw someone and they're explicitly like, no, thank you, I'm just commenting because I'm commenting, then I can move on to the next person. So unless you say otherwise, I will assume that your comment is applying for the giveaway. And tell me what you're working on. I would love to hear, what's on the needles now, or what you recently finished that you're in love with, a favorite make, whatever it may be. Tell me about your knitting. Tell me about the yarn that you love. I just want to hear about you as a maker. And that's about it. That's the giveaway spiel. So comment down below, be a subscriber if you so please, and I will ship it out to you. I'm open to this giveaway being international, but there's also some caveats I have to put on that. I have to double check. I don't know if I have any people watching from like New Zealand or Australia, but I believe that those places may not be accepting packages from Canada right now. So just be mindful that if you are chosen, I have no control over postal services and whether or not they're going to allow me to ship to you. But with that all said, please know that I intend to ship this at whatever cost, because I just want to be able to gift you this yarn and this project bag. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to do a little bit of a chatter segment at the end. It's going to be quite short, just because I'm tight on time. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing my projects, listening to me chat about yarn and knitting. And I will see you in the next one if you don't feel like sticking around. Otherwise, let's, grab a coffee, grab a tea, whatever it is that works for you, grab your knitting, and we will have a little chit chat. I think this will be a good project for me to work on because there's not a lot of yarn left before I have to start the new ball. So it'll like force me to stop talking after a certain point. I'm gonna get tangled, aren't I? Yeah, so typically in these segments, if you're new here, which there are plenty of new folks. So if you're new here, what I typically do is I talk about what's been on my mind lately about knitting. And in the past, that's been talking about how I feel like I have too much yarn and I need to plan my knitting. And then I talk about planning my knitting and how that also stresses me out. And like, I just sort of like share my anxieties as they pertain to my craft, because I think that sometimes like knitting is a good thing for me. I like to knit. I don't want to stop knitting, but I find that sometimes there's some like external pressure and expectation that I make up in my head as like their new expectations for myself, because I think it's what people want. So like, I haven't posted on my Instagram grid in a while, and so, oh no, that's bad, or I've failed in some way, which is all false and made up. Spoiler alert. But I also sometimes talk about, whether or not you want to call it like drama or whatever in the knitting community. I don't think it's fair to call something drama when people are just calling out someone's crappy actions and asking them to improve. So I do sometimes talk about like the Christy Glass situation or things like that. And my friend Mary of Mary Diddle Makes will also do a segment similar to this where, she even, I'm sorry if you can hear my dog, she just drank water way too fast and she's like coughing up a lung. Hey honey. So yeah, Mary of Mary Diddle Makes will, have even, oh no, is that, sorry, I dropped a stitch. She'll have conversations that are even more like current events, chit chat, and I just, I think it's important that the folks who watch me understand who I am as a person a little bit more than just the yarn that I like. There are some people who do not like that. There are some people who are like, I am here for the knitting. How dare you talk to me about anything else about your life? I don't care. And to that I say, that's fine. You don't have to care. But I do. When I watch folks' YouTube channels, my main concern is, who are they as a person? If they met me and found out that I'm queer, would they still like me? Right? Like, these things matter to me. And there's no way of knowing unless people say so. And a lot of people don't. And so it makes it really difficult for me to understand who I can sort of like trust with my time and energy. And, you know, I fear that I'm going to invest in someone, because that's what this is. You're investing your time in me by watching this video. You know, whether or not you ever purchase a good or service from me, right? You're investing your time. And so my biggest concern or fear, it's not really a fear, but you know what I mean. I have anxieties around investing my time in someone and then finding out that they're not the person that I hoped that they were, right? It's no one's fault if I misinterpret someone's words or actions to mean one thing when they meant another, right? My interpretation is my own. But if you don't make it easy enough for me to identify you as pro-queer, pro-black, pro, you know, abortion, I won't know these things about you, and then I have to sort of do a little digging or start questioning like the small side comments, and that's just overwhelming. I like to know who I'm dealing with. And so I guess this tangent that I'm going on is me sitting here to tell you who you're dealing with. And last episode, I made a comment, or a string of comments, about Jennifer Steingass and how I love her patterns. I love her design work. I know nothing about her as a person. She doesn't have a podcast. Her Instagram is strictly business. She strictly posts her patterns. Her captions don't speak to anything about like who she is as a person. So I had no idea who I was dealing with. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, everything from both people's Instagrams, I don't even think Jen posted anything on Instagram. So Instagram is kind of dead. I found my information via screenshots of a story post on Reddit. And like a summary of the situation. So take that with a grain of salt. Like, I do recognize that I'm getting sort of like third-hand information, and I'm neither of these people, and I also didn't hear the story from either of them, and I also only heard one side of the story. However, I get to decide where my money goes and who I spend my time with. And what was explained is enough for me to no longer support Jennifer Steingass as a designer until something is said. Now, if there was an apology that I missed, that is news to me. But I want to sort of speak to why I feel this way. And it's mostly in regards to, so the too long didn't read, the TLDR on this is that Jen Steingass messaged a designer, a woman of color, on Ravelry to say, you stole my designs, two of her designs. She said, you used my designs and you stole the motif for your recent release of a colorwork sweater. They look nothing alike. Like, it's actually comical how different these sweaters are. On top of that, colorwork motifs are, in a lot of instances, traditional and like they're evergreen. They're not, it's very rare that someone comes up with a new colorwork motif. Additionally, even if there is a section of Wei Chen's design that is similar to Jen's, in the sense that it used the same traditional motif, the rest of the pattern and the rest of the colorwork differentiate it such that if you put the two beside each other, I'd go, yeah, those are two different designers, those are two different aesthetics, those are two different everything, right? So she went out of her way to abruptly and rudely, based on the way that it was described, tell her that she stole her design and how dare she, basically. And left this poor woman feeling like crap, right? There was no assuming positive intent. There was no conversation. It was just, you did this, how dare you, you know, end of conversation. And I'm just not down for that. This has happened in the past as well with two much smaller, lesser known designers who I will not mention the names of because it's squashed at this point. There's no reason for it. But the similar thing happened where this one designer went, "You stole my design," and the other designer went, "It's a stitch pattern that I got from a stitch dictionary. No, I didn't. I didn't even know you were making this design." So while I am empathetic towards people feeling as though their design has been ripped off, and not to say that that doesn't happen, I do want to be very clear. It seems to me that in both of these instances, the conversation was not approached from assuming positive intent. So what I mean by that is assuming the person had no idea that your design existed, had maybe taken inspiration from your design but changed it such that it is no longer the same. You know, coming at it from a place of, hey, maybe this person doesn't realize that I've been upset by this, and so I'm going to have a conversation with them person to person and tell them that I've been upset, right? And then come to a solution together, right? And that solution, if the person in good faith tells you, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or "I'm sorry that I've upset you," because "I'm sorry you feel that way" is not really an apology. "I'm sorry I've upset you. I gained inspiration from XYZ," or "this is where this is coming from," or "this motif I got from a book," right? And you can only do so much with string and twigs, right? Knitting is not new. It's a centuries old craft. And so I think my disappointment in this comes from the way that she went about approaching this person. She didn't even have the courtesy of like using her name in the message, like addressing her by her name. It was just very entitled and holier than thou, and I didn't like it. And so yeah, like my last video, literally, I was like, Jen Steingass is the best designer ever. And now I'm sitting here like, well, I had no idea the type of person that she was. And there's something about blaming, or there's something about accusing someone for stealing your design that is so specific and heartbreaking for a designer who worked for a very long time and probably had no idea that you felt that way. And I just think that it happens, I think, more often than we think, and I'm not about it. So anyway, that's my little soapbox for today about that situation. I have a pattern of hers in my queue that I have the yarn for and intend to knit. So I probably still will because, you know, I have the yarn and I have the pattern. But I don't intend to necessarily seek out her patterns in the future. And I feel this way about a few designers. And again, we don't have to get into that, right? But this is just kind of where I stand of like, kind of, and Mary said this in one of her podcast episodes too, of like, where is your personal line? There are probably people watching who are rolling their eyes at me right now being like, wow, it's not that deep. Get over it. That's fine. She will still have a massive audience and a massive number of people buying her patterns. And if you're one of them, that's okay. If you want to keep doing that, that's chill with me. That's your life. That's your money. That's what you want to do. But there are just other ways that I wish to support people. And I also think that it was something that happened. It was like a blip on Instagram for like a day, and then it went away. And if you're someone like me who, you know, didn't catch it and you don't want to feel like finding it on Reddit, you might not know, right? So I'm just basically sharing my thoughts on that in case you saw me hyping up Jen, knew what happened, and then thought that I didn't care, and that affects you in some way, like it, you know, like my fear of investing time with someone and then finding out they don't align with my values. That's upsetting to me. So I'm basically just saying this so that you know that if that's where your values lie, same here, fam, same here. Again, if you disagree, that is okay. I hold no ill will if you don't see that the same way that I do. For example, We Crochet Official, which is also Knit Picks, and I use a lot of Knit Picks, recently did a real blunder with their Pride merch, Pride line, Pride campaign. Specifically We Crochet Official. I didn't see it from a Knit Picks email, but they essentially were like, June is Rainbow Month, talking about rainbows as in relation to June, with zero comment toward queer people in the LGBTQ plus community. I do not like that. That's bogus. Not cool, fam. So, that hurt me. That upset me. I hate rainbow capitalism. Would I have hated it just the same if they were like, show your pride, here's 50% off rainbow colors of this yarn line? Yeah, I would have hated that too, right? Probably would have preferred them to just say nothing. But I think I hate more that they were like, hey, rainbows for June, but made no mention of queer people. That is harmful, right? On that same, all of my feelings towards that will not stop me from purchasing from Knit Picks again, because they are a cost-effective way to continue doing my hobby during times where I cannot afford or do not wish to purchase hand-dyed or more expensive yarns. So I'm hypocritical if you think of it that way, right? I am holding this designer to arguably a higher standard than this larger company, which for people calling Knit Picks a small business, no, they're not. I just want to put that out there. I saw some of that in the comments of like, you're bullying a small business. They're not a small business. That is not where they fall. So I'm holding a single individual at a higher standard than a corporation, because I do understand the nuances between an entire marketing team making that choice versus one person directly DMing one person and making them feel crappy. There's a difference there to me. But I do recognize that my standard of expectation does vary. Because frankly, expecting a corporation to get it right and to not do a stupid, for lack of a better way of putting it, in regards to pride, I have very low expectations or hopes in those regards. I have never seen it done well. It probably will not be done well, and they probably should have just kept their mouth shut. So, neither here nor there. I'm not happy from any direction. But, yeah, I don't know how to end this other than don't be rude to fellow designers, please. Just be nice. That'd be great if you could do that. Thank you. Yeah. Just be nice. It'll go a long way. And I don't mean nice as in forced niceness. I mean genuinely meet someone where they're at and have a human-to-human conversation. It goes a long way. Yeah, anyway, that's all to say. Happy Pride, baby! I'll be at the Victoria Pride Parade on Sunday. I will be walking in the parade with my partner. I'm very excited for that. I have not actually ever walked in a parade. I've only ever visually experienced a pride parade, so that'll be very fun. I will not be wearing hand knits because it's going to probably be sweltering hot, but that's okay. And yeah, if you're celebrating Pride too, happy Pride. If you're celebrating your first Pride, then even more happy Pride. Or if you think Pride's dumb and you're not about that life because it's all corporate now and not nearly the protest that it once was, that's also fine. But just know that you are welcome here. In any direction that you feel about all of that, unless you don't think Pride should exist because you're straight and you think because you don't get a straight month then gay people shouldn't get a gay month, to which I say every month is your month. You can leave. But yeah, that's me today. I'm feisty apparently. I'm gonna go to the dentist now. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to comment if you want to win the giveaway. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I guess I should say that. That's what YouTubers do. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.